Welcome to a new episode of the Opening Bid Unfiltered podcast. I'm Yahoo Finance Executive Editor Brian Sozzi. Like I always say, this podcast will make you a smarter investor, and you're going to become smarter in so many different facets of business and corporate America on this one. Joining me now is James D. White. James, good to see you. There's lots of different ways I could introduce you, but first and foremost, you're the author of the new book with your daughter, Krista White, Culture Design, How to Build a High-Performing, Resilient Organization with Purpose. Of course, you're the former longtime CEO of Jamba Juice. You're on the board of Cava, board of The Honest Company. James, you're a busy guy. You're a busy guy.
Absolutely. But doing work that I love, and the work of the book is some of the most important work that I've done. I've had the great pleasure to work on this project with my daughter, Krista.
No, it's so great to see you again. Thanks for making time for me here. So talk us a little bit about the inspiration behind writing a book like this.
Really, the thought around the book is we looked at really the accelerated pace of change, all the things going on geopolitically, socially. You've got tariffs. There's never been a more important time to focus on culture. And kind of the thesis of the book is you have culture by design or default. And with the accelerated change, our thesis is that not enough leaders and companies are being intentional about culture.
What is causing that? What's the root issue of that?
I just think the speed, I think all the things that are coming at C-suite leaders and chief executives are putting this as a back burner issue. And the point we're making is this is a place to start. And just the importance of, I've got a board colleague that says human capital drives financial capital. We think that's lost on leaders. We also believe that empathy is really a core capability that we all need to be more focused on in this moment. And we think there's a lack of people-centered, people-focused leadership in this moment.
Is it the push? I don't know. I just feel not that public. I'm going to focus on public companies. Public company CEOs, they always want to, they're grow profits, drive shareholder value, et cetera, et cetera. But it feels like we're really in a heightened moment of CEOs, CFOs, and other leaders focusing on the bottom line.
And I think it's important to focus on the bottom line, but you can't lose sight that the humans are actually what drives the bottom line. So we actually ask people to kind of really step back, and we kind of focus the book in a few ways, kind of knowing what matters, kind of the context of the business environment that you're operating in, do what matters. How do you operationalize all the things that are important? And obviously you measure what matters, and that gets to the bottom line. But I think if you skip steps, you can get to a short-term bottom line result that looks positive, but it won't be sustainable over time, is really the argument that we make in the book.
So if I was a CEO today, how do I go about establishing a winning corporate culture?
I think the first thing that we would suggest that you do is that you take a diagnostic of the current state of play. Because there are lots of things that we espouse and talk about. Danny Myers talks about culture being all the things that we say we stand for, minus the things that we allow. So we talk about in the book this say-do gap. So there's lots of things that are printed on the website, printed on walls, but how do consumers, employees actually experience what happens in your operation? So, really taking a clear-eyed view of the current state of play, and then given all the significant change happening, what's the ambition? What's the true north for this business? And then work back from there and look at the gaps, and then kind of roadmap all the rituals and symbols and things that happen from an operating perspective to either add to or take away from the culture.
How do you get that message from the top all the way to the bottom parts of the company?
We think there's a couple ways that you do it. We think there's a top down and a bottom up, and we really kind of anchor around the middle management of the organization. We think it first starts with the CEO. We think she's got to have a very disciplined way of communicating into the organization, and it can vary. It's going to be really leveraging all of the communication processes that are available. from one-on-ones to town halls to really all the media. I mean, a lot of folks will use social media to communicate if they have large workforces, to highlight, show gratitude. A couple leaders that you and I both know well, Bert Schulman at Cava does a fantastic job of, communicating inside the company, external. He's got a spectacular culture. Keisha Stillman at Ulta Beauty, one of my favorites here. She's a board colleague on another board that I sit on, does a spectacular job in her year one, really communicating to all of her stakeholders. And that inspires and really kind of drives, I think, a strong culture.
In reading this book, I was heartened to hear you say there is a role for middle management, because I feel as though we're in this moment too where middle management is being hollowed out.
Absolutely. And we actually think it's really hard to drive culture into an organization if you're not focused on the middle management of the organization. If you step back line and really think about any organization, most of us work for the middle management of the organization. And if that part of the organization doesn't have the tools, hasn't bought into the mission and vision, and they're not being appropriately rewarded or invested in, you don't have the best chance of getting that message into the, into the heart of the organization.
You've also developed a lot of interesting questions that I guess, leaders should be having with HR. Like, what is that template? What questions should a leader be asking right now if they want to establish a good culture?
I think the first thing is kind of the why of both themselves as individual leaders, but for, what's the why of the organization? What really matters for this organization? And I just think there's got to be, we describe it as an archaeological dig where we look at, how things work at the place. So I work with a lot of CEOs, and I start by asking, well, tell me how this business runs. How often do you meet? What stakeholders do you meet with? What does it really look like in your organization? And you'd be surprised, Brian, at the blank stares on, the importance of really the leadership cadence. And I, had the great fortune, worked for many years with Jim Kiltz, who's a legend in the consumer products business, and then fortunate enough more recently from a board perspective to work with as a board colleague Ron Shaich, who we also both know.
I want to drill down to two names because there's two folks that I've gotten to know decently, more so Ron. But Ron Shaich, you mentioned Danny Meyer too. Zoom out for us. What makes these two people tick? Of course, you've had Danny Meyer, Union Square Hospitality Group. You got Ron Shaich, the founder of Panera Bread. I mean, icons in their industry, and you don't get to that iconic level if you're not doing a lot right. Yeah, financially too, but you have to inspire a whole generation of people inside the company and even outside the company that work with the company.
I think the main thing is really, and I look at Ron focuses on knowing what matters, really kind of what's the true essence of this business? What job are we doing for the consumer? What job does she need us to do? And then he organizes everything about his operation, builds his culture to really serve that consumer. And I would say Danny Meyer, much the same. And there's a top down, a focus on the middle of the organization. But really for both of those leaders, not too much time passes before they're at the front line of the organization, which really is how most businesses, especially consumer-facing, more restaurant or retail-oriented businesses, those businesses live or die by being able to translate strategy and leveraging culture to really enable the execution at the frontline level. That's how I would think about really what separates those two leaders from other leaders that I've seen.
You talk to a lot of leaders, like you mentioned, James. What's the biggest pressure they're dealing with as they go into next year?
I just think the rapid pace of change and really what to do with the confluence of tariffs, the geopolitical issues that are coming their way. And then one of the things staring down most of our businesses today is the rapid acceleration of AI and how to really manage that in the most thoughtful way. And the gap that I see, especially related to AI, is I think as folks are rapidly running to adapt AI and the fantastic tools and the promise that it brings, we're forgetting about the human beings, especially that middle management that has to enable the effective use of these tools, for us to realize in a sustained way the benefits. I think we also haven't spent enough time thinking about what's the work best done by humans and what's the work best done by AI, and then who needs to be reskilled and who needs to be upskilled, and what does that all look like? And at the end of the day, there's just really not a strategy or a plan on the adoption and kind of governance of AI.
James, what stories make me cringe of late is the stories that pop up that AI will replace a board member. AI will replace the CEO. What do you think about this?
I view AI as a really incredibly valuable tool. I'm doing all of my own, tests just to learn so I can stay current. That's one of the benefits of me working with my millennial daughter. It forces me to try to keep my skill set relevant. But I think anybody that views AI replacing humans, AI cannot show empathy from where I sit. AI is a force multiplier if you've got smart humans that are prepared to leverage the tool, even in the boardroom.
All right, hang with us, James. We're going to go off for a very short break. We'll be right back on Opening Bid Unfiltered. All right, welcome back to Opening Bid Unfiltered. Having a great conversation with James D. White, the author of Culture Design, How to Build a High-Performing, Resilient Organization with Purpose. James wrote that book with his daughter, Krista White. James also a longtime board member of many really fascinating companies, from Cava, The Honest Company. And James, I want to get into your career. We're talking about all these other executives. Let me talk about you for a second, because the last time I saw you, we were on stage talking about, I think, maybe corporate governance. It was a couple of years ago. I'm like, I never really got to ask James about his own career. You started at Coca-Cola in sales. Is that right?
Yeah, started in sales, kind of carrying a bag. I was selling Minute Maid orange juice in southwest Missouri.
What was that
And
like?
It was the best, most foundational skill. I mean, so you learn to deal with rejection, but you're learning every single day, because I'm out pitching orange juice, trying to compete for more space. Really the best job ever to kind of learn the foundational elements of the consumer packaged goods industry, and then really built my career from there.
How did you deal with hearing no?
Well, you learn to play through, you refine the messages, and you kind of live to play another day, come up with a better solution the next time through. I mean, because you literally, if you're doing 8 or 10 calls a day, and I'm literally selling supermarket retailers to get inches and more space of Minute Maid orange juice. And kind of back in the day, my first day on the job, they give me gloves, because I'm moving products around the frozen freezer case or the dairy. But it was just spectacular experience for a young person right out of school, and I learned a ton that I've carried kind of into the future.
In those early days when you were out there selling Minute Maid orange juice, did you map it out somewhere that, hey, I'm going to eventually be the CEO of Jamba Juice? I mean, was that on some vision board somewhere?
It wasn't on the vision board for me. I was the first member of my family to graduate from college, so you literally could only aspire to what you could see. So all I wanted to do was a great job in that job, and then move to the next job. I had my first leadership experience at age of 24. Everybody on that first team at Coke were 10 or 15 years my senior. But the lesson that I learned early on that has served me well is people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Because you could imagine these were all veterans at the company. So there is not much that a recent sales rep who was promoted is going to know about this category that would be superior to the folks that I was leading. So I learned early on to really tap into the superpowers and the strength of the team, and the rest has been history from a leadership perspective.
You had a lot of tremendous success over 8 years leading a turnaround at Jamba Juice. And I think your playbook, tell us a little bit about that playbook. That first year you get in there, how do you go about turning a brand around? I imagine a lot of listeners and viewers of this could be helped by this advice.
I think the way that I thought about it is, Jamba, if you go to the early 2000s, was one of the highest flying brands in the uh, in the restaurant space. Went public in 2006. By the time I show up, we were literally about to head out the world the wrong direction. So definitely a turnaround. I show up in 2008, and the first thing I wanted to do is really hear from all the stakeholders, including the folks at our support center, consumers, board members, on what they thought we needed to do first, second, and third, and importantly, what were the things that they believed to be that were working. And I had a hypothesis that if I could garner that information and make minor adjustments with the culture, I'd be able to put us in a position to, ultimately turn around and transform the company. So we focused on the customer, we focused on the things that needed to happen at the team, and back to this idea of kind of unlocking the full potential of the middle management. We wanted to hear from the general managers who were running our shops because they actually know what the answers are. They know what the solutions are. They're with customers all day long. And Jamba was just such a cherished brand. We felt like if we could make some quick adjustments, we'd be able to stabilize the company, ultimately make smarter choices moving to turn the company around. But we rich culture and our focus on people as a real unlock.
James, you've had a lot of experience in the restaurant industry. Of course, not just Jamba Juice. You're on the board of Panera Bread. Of course, it was a public company. I remember covering and talking to Ron in my early days of being a restaurant or a consumer reporter. This is a really interesting time. Of course, I should mention too, you're on the board of Cava right now, but this is a very interesting time to be a restaurant company. Like, how disruptive is technology to the restaurant industry at this juncture?
Well, I think we actually view the acceleration of technology and technology solutions as value added if managed appropriately. I would view the challenge consumer, being a bigger issue today. Tariffs. I mean, Brett has been quoted as saying that we like walking into a restaurant and the prices are changing as you walk in to place your order, is what it probably feels like as a CEO in this environment. And then you've got all the really challenging things from a workforce dynamic happening. But the best leaders have a really clear-headed view of their brand essence, and they're continuing just to stay focused as we have at Cava. Couldn't be prouder of that team and the way they've navigated the environment we find ourselves in.
Is there a way for a leader to overcome in the restaurant industry these high prices? Is it make a smaller bowl, cut the size of burrito in half? Like, what are the measures these leaders are taking?
I think the best leaders, and again, I can't diagnose the things that folks need to do, but you've got to just be mindful of what are the levers to create value for the consumer and protect the bottom line of the organization. So it's lots of different things that would be a contributor to creating kind of a strong momentum on the top line and a stronger and respectable bottom line performance in this business. But it's a tough environment. It's a environment of pennies and inches and day-to-day execution. You actually win a customer at a time in this business.
Lastly, James, I always love to get a hot take from our guests at the end of these podcasts. So how do you know, or could you identify a corporate culture that just isn't working any longer and needs a reboot?
I think for me, especially for consumer-oriented businesses, and I sit in lots of consumer-oriented businesses, when you engage with the frontline workers and you see, really a disconnect from the corporate speak and how you experience the brand kind of in the shop, in the store, in the restaurant, at retail, or even online. For me, it's, I'm from Missouri, so it's a kind of a show me. And you and I both know the brands that are winning in this moment. You can actually feel the strategy kind of pull straight through. And there's some story brands that are a little bit flat today.
That observation is why you're one of the best in the game. And of course, the author of the new book, Culture Design, How to Build a High-Performing, Resilient Organization with Purpose. James, always good to see you. Thanks for making time with me. I appreciate it.
Brian, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. All right, and that's it for the latest episode of Opening Bid Unfiltered. Like I always say, keep that feedback coming on YouTube and all the podcast platforms. I love to hear it. It makes me better at doing these interviews. We'll talk to you soon.